Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. As we mentioned before, Mike Scott's newscast, and as was mentioned during it, but bears repeating, 701,000 the job loss in March. And remember, March is just the tip of the spear when it comes to the job hemorrhaging occurring because of the economic shutdown in response to the coronavirus. Steve Mnuchin, thus, was an important man at the task force briefing yesterday, providing details on the aspects of the disaster relief, both for businesses and individuals. Let's start with the businesses, fewer than 500 employees, and the payroll protection program loans.
You get the money, you'll get it the same day. You use this to pay your workers. Please bring your workers back to work. If you've let them go, you have 8 weeks plus overhead. This is a very important program. I'm pleased to announce we are going to raise the interest rate on these loans. And again, the interest rate is paid for as part of the program. The borrower doesn't have to pay this to 1%. We had announced it was going to be 50 basis points. We've heard from some smaller community banks that their deposit costs, even though the government's borrowing at 3 or 4 basis points, this is on average a 90-day loan. To make this attractive for community banks, we've agreed to raise the interest rate. Again, I encourage everybody, take out the Paycheck Protection Program.
You know what? One thing that's interesting about that, talking to some small business owner friends of mine, is, and I understand they had to be somewhat indiscriminate because of the speed at which they were trying to respond. But you have businesses that are healthy balance sheets. They were not going to lay anyone off. You're basically giving them free money.
Right.
One business friend of mine, like I'm getting money 2.5 times my payroll available money at for free, right? Because it'll be converted to a grant from a loan because I'm not laying anybody off, and it's just sort of free money.
What do you do?
Well, you take it. Why wouldn't you take it? I understand. Mnuchin also on the individual payments, since there was some discrepancy in the reporting on this, whether in terms of how long it would take for people who are not getting their checks direct deposited to receive their checks.
The economic impact payments. I had previously said this would take us 3 weeks. I'm pleased to report that within 2 weeks, the first payments will be direct deposit into taxpayers' account. And as the president said, last night the president authorized me to say that anybody that has Social Security recipients won't need to file a new tax return, and we'll have that. If we don't have your direct deposit information, we'll be putting up a web portal so that you can put that up. It is a very large priority. The president has made clear we want to get this money quickly into your hands.
And for those people that don't have access to traditional banking or are not uploading their information for direct deposit, we're still talking about weeks, not months, as was reported, to receive your individual checks, for those who qualify. Remember, that's basically under 100 grand, under individuals under 150 grand for a couple. And then just lastly, Mnuchin on the on the employer retention tax credit for some of the bigger businesses north of 500 employees.
And I'm also pleased to report the employee retention credit. It's up and running. The first $10,000 of wages, you get a 50% credit. That's $5,000 per person. And for everyone who's kept someone, you can immediately get that money. You can deduct it from what you owe the IRS immediately. If you don't owe us money, you'll get a refundable tax credit. So that is up and running.
For more on this, we're pleased to be joined again by Scott the Cowguy Shellady, Fox Business regular. Scott, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
Good morning. So as I said before the Mike Scott's newscast, so talking about modeling, ADP predicted we'd shed 27,000 jobs the other day in March, and we, according to the Labor Department, shed 701,000. So another cautionary tale about modeling, garbage in, garbage out. But what about that 700,000?
Like you said, I think earlier, I think that's the tip of the iceberg. I mean, I'm absolutely exhausted. I've been standing on an island all by myself because it just seems to me, my gut reaction, it's my opinion and my opinion only, that this total one-size-fits-all shut the entire U.S. $20 trillion economy down has been an absolute disaster, and it's going to get a lot worse. So, I mean, there are no good numbers, and yes, every life matters. There is, I don't mean to seem callous. You have to say that because my Twitter account is full of people that wish my early demise.
Right, right.
But it's true.
Yeah,
that's
I know.
the problem. And so here's the deal, okay? It's the visible deaths versus the invisible deaths. And there's 160 million working Americans out there, Dan, that have no seat at the table of all that. They've been thrown under the bus. And there are empirical numbers that you can glean from this that death spikes higher in an economic downturn because of more poverty, more suicide, and more crime. It's simple. So there is another side of the coin that just doesn't get talked about. And gosh darn it, I'm so happy that we're only at 6,000 deaths here in the U.S. And I'm scared to think about what Dr. Fauci's been talking about coming around the corner here because of the shutdown. We've been expecting all these things to happen, and it's so far. I mean, it'll be great if we miss them, but it's going to be indefensible by me because everybody will say, "Well, we missed all those numbers because we did what we did." But remember, I had enough time. As soon as I felt like this world was losing its mind, and nobody was going to be an adult in the room, so the first major league whatever sport cancels, everybody acquiesces and cancels all their sports. The first college to cancel all of their classes, every other college acquiesces and cancels. I mean, I just got in a car, Dan, from Portage, Indiana, where I live, and I just drove to my house in Scottsdale because I felt as though this was going to get ridiculous, and I think it has. And if I was going to be cooped up in a ridiculous spot, I wanted it to just be 80 degrees and sunny with a pool in my backyard.
Oh, you're so smart. Oh, you get to go swimming. I'm so jealous. So 10 million Americans. Oh, yeah. Okay, finish what you were going to say.
No, so I just want to say, look, so we've got those, oh my gosh, if we didn't do anything numbers, we would have lost 2.2 million people. And now because of the mediation, we might only lose 100 to 220 or 250, whatever that number may be. There are numbers on the other side that say that we might see as high as 32% unemployment rate and 47 million people may lose their jobs. We've already got 10 million people that have applied for assistance with unemployment in the last 2 weeks, 10 million, right? So we're 25% away, or 12% away. So you can see empirically that with every 1% bump in unemployment, that's a roughly 4,000 American lives. Okay, so if we do see a 30% unemployment rate, that means it will have gone up by 27,000. There's 100,000 people right there.
Yeah, you know
So
what?
there is-
It would be nice. It would be nice if we did a competing ticker, economic deaths related to the COVID-19 response. It'd be nice.
You'll
Right.
get absolutely slated on Twitter. I mean, like I said, it's just
No, I
I'm
know.
so tired. I'm so tired,
It's
and I'm
exhausting.
exhausted because everybody is just coming at me. But I just feel like all of a sudden I'm like the accidental voice in the room for the people that have been working 40 years to watch it all go down the drain, and they did not have a say at the table. That is a crime.
Well, there's no question in my mind that the suicide rate is going to go up. I mean, it's hard when we have older family members too. They're like, what is going on? I need to get out of my house. I need to socialize. Like, people are literally losing their minds and also their retirement.
Because you're getting scared.
funds.
Turn off the news because you're getting scared. Everybody needs. Look, I don't know if 7,000 cases of COVID-19 overnight is a large number, and I don't know if 500 deaths overnight is a large number. I need to get some perspective. How many other infectious diseases do we discover overnight, and how many other deaths do we get? I need to have those numbers in perspective because just out of the blue, I don't know, and that's what we're given every morning. And America is so scared. So here's the deal: Mnuchin, I like what he's doing. Right? I love the idea that they're trying to throw money at this thing, but we're still throwing money at a psychological problem. And we're not going to come out of this, Dan and Amy, until a 70-year-old couple is confident in going to a crowded restaurant in Chinatown for dinner. That's when this is over, because we're going to see 30% of all the seats taken out of restaurants because people are going to be paranoid. How many people are going to go to a sporting event now? I mean, there are going to be ramifications from what the scare tactics, the hyperbole and hysteria that you've gotten on your television screens every morning. This is going to linger.
With respect to the market, I mean, I couldn't help talking to a friend watching the market yesterday for a bit while having a cigar at a safe distance, of course.
Of course, 6 feet apart.
And the market goes up on news of 6.6 million first-time filers for unemployment. I couldn't help but think of the scene from The Big Short where the Christian Bale character can't understand how the bottom hasn't been reached. He basically says, "Look, I always knew the market was rigged, but I had no idea it was rigged this badly." I mean, what is how? I mean, based on oil prices, based on what Trump said about Saudi Arabia and Russia reducing their oil production, in the face of 6.6 million first-time unemployment filers, you get a bump in the market. And look, I'm happy for it as somebody who's getting killed like everybody else, but I'm just incredulous at that.
Yeah, it's a false dawn. I mean, we're going to struggle. When everybody got too overly negative and they saw that number and it was like a relief rally, like, okay, the doctor finally did give us our terminal, diagnosis, and they feel good about that for some reason. So, look, the number that we got the earlier week, 3.28 the week earlier, that was 4 times larger than the previous record. And then the next week we get something that's double the 4 times larger record. I mean, this is insane. And it's only going to get worse from here. It's not going to get any better. So if we have these St. Louis Fed, ideas of 47 million people losing their jobs, you could see a 6-figure toll on the death toll on the other side of the coronavirus, which could eclipse the total deaths from the virus. And I still say this, and again, I get killed for it, but I think that ultimately the economic damage will be greater than the virus ever thought it could be.
With respect to any advice you have for people that are essentially, is there anything I can do other than just sit here and take it? You hear advice somewhat on the infotainment or investotainment shows, but I mean, just sort of hard and fast, simple advice, rebalancing your portfolio, converting your traditional IRA to Roth IRA, things like that. Is there anything in particular you would say to somebody who's, as you point out, particularly the person close to retirement who now is having to rethink what retirement's going to look like?
That's collateral damage. And think about that. All I've had time to do is sit out in the sun and read here, right? There's a lot of statistics that are proving that it's going to be even more difficult to get a job when we come out of this because there's going to be so many old people that go thrust themselves back into the workforce because they have to.
Right.
Right. So this is the knock-on effects and the unintended consequences. So here's what I would say. If you're just retired or about to retire, you know what? Unfortunately, that's the collateral damage. You're probably going to have to work a little longer than you thought. That's going to be the case. If you have extra cash laying around, I would be putting it in now. It's going to go lower at some point in time, but I wouldn't put it all in at once. But I mean, these are going to look like great levels in 5 years. But right now, you're just in the middle of a storm.
No. When is it safe to look at my 401k?
I don't know, in your 55th birthday.
Okay,
which is very far away.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
yeah,
I think that's his point. And just one other point too. I mean, since you're in that space with all of the modelers and predictors and Wall Street analysts that you see on the CNBCs of the world, should we trust their projections about the economic carnage any more than we should trust necessarily the projections of the public health officials until there is more data on which to make intelligent hypotheses?
No, I think it's everybody's thrown everything against the wall, and we'll see what sticks. I mean, I understand where they have to come from the viral side. They really want to make sure that they get on top of it, and so scare tactics is part of the tools that they have in their toolbox. But what they have totally ignored is that other side of the coin, which I just can't believe it. I mean, I cannot believe this is my country. I really can't believe that we've shut America down. It's a $20 trillion economy. Now, again, all deaths matter, right? But just make sure the other side of the coin deaths matter, because $20 trillion economy shut down so far 6,000 deaths doesn't pass the old farmer smell test with me. So
and
you're such a voice of reason.
And also here, is it concerning to you as it is to me when you hear after the $6 trillion disaster relief gambit, you're hearing very small ball ideas, rebates from auto insurance companies with accidents down since no one's driving. Trump the other day talking about reintroducing the idea of 100% deductions for entertainment and for restaurant meals for corporations. Once it literally was once restaurants open up again, once we open back up again, so as to get restaurants and entertainment venues ramped back up. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of small ball rather than big ideas on the supply side, on the capital incentive side.
I totally agree with you, and that is frustrating. And I just feel like they're out of touch, right? Because they say to you, oh, go out and buy gift certificates from your local restaurants. It'll help them get through this downtime. First of all, I want to say why, because they're not going to be there when we come out of this, so it's going to be useless money thrown into the wind. Mm-hmm. And number two is, what am I buying this with? I don't have a job, and I don't have any money either. I mean, that's crazy talk. Who's going to buy a car now? I mean, who's going to buy a house now?
No.
Who's going to do anything now? And they just don't think of it that way. Go buy gift certificates. Okay, number one, with what money? And number two, for a company that's not going to be around in 4 weeks' time? You're out of your mind.
All right, Scott Shellady, go take a dip in the pool, cool off.
I have to. I'm sorry.
We appreciate it. We like the unvarnished perspective. Scott the Cow Guy Shellady, Fox Business Regular. Thanks, Scott.
See ya.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
This is attorney Stephen Leahy, host of the IRS Radio Hour, heard right here on AM 560 every Sunday evening at 5 o'clock. Let me tell you about Bill. Bill's business slowed down and he fell behind on his taxes. Instead of filing his tax return, he decided to wait until he could pay. Well, 1 year turned to 2, turned to 3. Then the IRS threatened to contact his customers, take his house, his bank account, and his passport. Well, Bill hired me. We filed all of his tax returns and an appeal to slow the IRS down. Then we worked out an installment agreement based on how much he could pay, not on how much he owed. Now Bill can rely on the IRS protection plan. We will file his future tax returns and keep the IRS off his back so Bill can focus on growing his business. If you have questions about the IRS, you can get a copy of my book, Deal with Your IRS Problem Today, to learn the secrets of solving your IRS problem and save your business, your marriage, and your reputation. Call 312-664-6649 or go to freeirsbook.com.
Hey, if you want to run a business